The Republic of South Africa is located at the southernmost tip of the African continent. It's the second largest economy in Africa, and the most economically developed and industrialized country in Africa. Due to economic development, journalism industries in South Africa has developed quickly in recent years. Media24 is now the world's 8th largest media conglomerate. However, because of the uncertain political climate, media freedom in South Africa is back in the direction of authoritarianism. Media is still under strict censorship, while diversity is still lacking. The South African media system consists of 3 tiers: public, commercial, and community. Generally, South Africa's government supervises journalism with a council named the Press Council of South Africa, PCSA. But interestingly, PCSA is not a national regulator, it's an NGO, a private club. Meanwhile, the South Africa Broadcasting Corporation, SABC, largely monopolized openly accessible television and radio broadcasting. The SABC operates in terms of legislation as the national broadcaster, essentially to supply broadcasting services to everyone in South Africa. Although the advent of a liberal constitution in 1994 considerably improved the diversity and freedom of media and information, journalism is under the pressure of laws. For example, South African President Jacob Zuma has sued print journalists and publishing houses for printing information he believes has damaged his dignity and reputation. Meanwhile, the government attempts to pass the Protection of Information Bill. This potential law could criminalize journalists for exposing information that the government deems confidential, even if such information serves the public interests, such as exposing corruption. To sum up, although South Africa claims the freedom of the press, journalism institutions are still subject to strict government censorship. South Africa is the biggest media market in Africa. Media24 is the largest media conglomerate outside the United States and China. However, journalism in South Africa remains highly monopolized, with a very high level of media concentration. Specifically, the South African newspaper industry is dominated by only 4 groups. However, Media24 owns more than 60 kinds of newspapers and virtually monopolizes the market. As mentioned, the South African Broadcasting Corporation (SABC) largely monopolized openly accessible television and radio broadcasting. In the area of TV broadcasting, only ETV, part of MIDI Television, is the alternative and the second largest television company in South Africa. In the area of radio broadcasting, Prime Media and Kagiso Media came to dominate radio in 1996. However, SABC still has the most prominent voice as the public broadcaster. Meanwhile, a point to note is that overseas media such as BBC are allowed to enter South Africa. BBC News is even one of the most trusted media outlets in South Africa. The Hufvudstadsbeskriving Index (HHS) has been used for a long time to assess the concentration of firms in specific industry. This index indicates that journalism industries in South Africa have high concentration and moderate diversity. The current state of journalism in South Africa is complex. Research from the University of Cape Town and Stellenbosch University, which analyzed 134 reports and interviewed 8 journalists, shows that South Africa journalists believe that their exposure to corruption and state capture has become increasingly vital to protect democracy. They describe the watchdog journalism as their primary role and the cornerstone of their society's responsibility. They also emphasize that a free press in South Africa is critical. However, the state of journalism education in South Africa is alarming. Journalism education started in South Africa in the apartheid era. Although the situation changed after the 1990 political transition, South Africa education has always viewed journalism as a practice-based discipline with no theory. It was not until 2003 that the South African Minister of Education introduced the reforms to the academic community. The universities started to teach journalism practice and theory with different courses and emphasized the curricula in different ways. However, in light of the lagging curriculum and complex society, the scholars point out that perhaps the most important challenge for South African journalists is fostering individual critical thought. Social media has already had a tremendous impact on South Africa. The research shows that video content is becoming increasingly popular on social media platforms, with platforms like TikTok and Instagram leading the charge. Meanwhile, audiences who use print as a news source continue to decline, and viewers who use TV news also decline after the COVID-19 highs. Conversely, the number of people using social media for news has grown across all platforms. News sites increasingly embrace the opportunities that platforms bring to reach new audiences. For instance, the News24 site has around 75,000 subscribers, a growth of 53% year-on-year. A report shows that the internet penetration in South Africa is at 58%. Due to this, scholars believe that despite the challenges, social media will likely continue to play a significant role in journalism and the society of South Africa. To conclude, although South Africa shows some freedom for the press, for example, tabloid newspapers have a broad market, journalism is still under significant censorship. However, with the responsibility of the journalists, journalism will undoubtedly continue to play a vital role in South African society.